So my understanding is it started in West Auckland by a person called Phil, but I can't remember his last name, unfortunately. Then it started in Dunedin, and that's where it was given the name Te Ora Hou Ōtautahi, and that was probably in the late 70s. And that became like the benchmark model of running Te Ora Hou Ōtautahi in Aotearoa. The director of Te Ora in Dunedin grabbed me and said, "John, I'm going to be going up to Ōtautahi next year, and you should come up with me, and you can see how we set the program, how we set it up, and then you can go back to Christchurch and set it up." So yeah, in January 1983, I was off to Ōtautahi, and yeah, it was the best experience of my life. I loved it, and I actually couldn't wait to get back to Christchurch because it got real. Oh, this is awesome. And then came back down here, and yeah, that was for me to pioneer.
My earliest memory is when Te Ora Hou, or Te Ora as it was known here, was part of YFC, Youth for Christ.
Yeah, it was on the corner of Madras and Chester, you're right. There was a big white house with blue roof.
Big old, 2-storied, could have been more, weatherboard, typical character villa home.
When we went to see it, honestly, the floors were like this. It was like, we're thinking, what? This is like, what?
Cold, dark, big.
It all got levelled, the foundations all got levelled, and it basically got remade. It was pretty amazing.
Old furniture, Milo, 12 sugars.
I had to go in there for our staff meetings, and so I had to find a venue to run a club from, and we ended up using the Bishop Dale Community Hall. I'm not sure, it was a concrete block building, a square concrete block building that was behind the shopping centre, or behind the mall as it was called then. Yeah, so I don't even know if it's still there, but it had nice murals on it. It was hardly ever used, so we used that as our clubhouse.
So the next memory I have is after Madras and Chester, a big industrial place. So YFC moved to an industrial place.
It ended up in Chilling Street. It was there for quite a while.
So sometimes we'd use the space. You could book it out. You'd go in here, you'd pick the vans up, you'd go in, drop the car off, pick the vans up, go out, pick the kids up, if you were able to get a hold of a van for your Monday night activities. And sometimes we'd run activities there.
So we'd be picked up, or we'd go meet at other people's houses to be picked up from?
Yeah, it was always the van would pull up, toot toot, you'd run out. Yeah.
Yeah. We're out.
Yeah. The parents were always like, "Club's in here, hurry up."
Or
they better not come inside. Yeah. Go outside.
Don't bring them in here.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to talk to you now. Don't worry about the consent, it's signed.
Mum got a dollar? No.
No. Not sending you there to cost anything.
Yeah.
You just go.
It was one of those big sort of standard tilt slab, 2-storey building, big warehouse down the bottom.
And we never really went.
Looked
We
like
only
there was
went there for clubs, eh?
barbed wire up on the windows, eh?
Yeah.
Looked like there was like netted windows, not actual glass windows. And you walked in, you're like, am I going to be okay? Will I get back out alive?
And I'm fairly sure that's the first place I remember Te Ora Hou, or Te Ora having an office. So that was Teresa, Kylie, Helena's, Rob McConnell's. It was their office, so we had a space there. It was an office space, but we shared it with everyone else.
And it smelled. It had this real smell to it. I was like, what's that smell? It's like, what do you mean? I'm like, can you not smell it too? It's like, oh. But we didn't care, because we were together and we had fun. And we were always like mocking each other, and just life for that moment didn't matter about what smells and looks of a building looked like. It was that we were together and we were having fun, and we just came on that same common ground, like brokenness and effed up homes. And it was like, for that time, we would just be kids again and just have fun and, cry, laugh, date each other, go out with each other. Yeah, not leaders.
Not me.
Even though we wanted to, but we couldn't.
No comment.
So it was all under YFC, and so we seemed like we were just a small part of it. While we had heaps of kids and did heaps of activities, we just seemed to be a small cog in their big machine. So it was very much a YFC feel rather than Te Ora Hou feel. So between 96 and 97, we moved out of YFC, we became Te Ora Hou, we started our own entity. And a little while we were in Te Ora Hou, but then a guy called Darryl Gregory, who was chairman of our board, he was working, setting up a company called He Wakatapu, based over on the east side now. And he said to Teresa Niho, who was our boss, our manager, our coordinator, said, come and join in. So they both shared little offices up there. And so it was an admin space. And so our doing space, our meeting space, because that was in town, it was offices, was kind of, that's where we started using Papanui Baptist Church a lot more. So we used to use the back of the hall. The back of the hall was where TKW was originally set up.
So the Papanui Baptist Hall was where we first started Te Kaupapa Whakaora's class sessions. So that was a pretty cool place. I was just mentioning earlier on about it, and it had that feel that you wanted to be there. I lived over in Redwood area. I'd walk to Papanui Baptist in the rain with my children because I wanted to be there, because I knew it was a place that it had people that actually listened. It was awesome. It was really accepting. The church folk accepted us, young people coming from the walks of life that we did. I got baptised in Papanui Baptist.
Me too.
So yeah, I was baptised by in the pool. So if it wasn't for that connection and that relationship that was built between the church and Te Kaupapa Whakaora, I don't think I would have ever known a journey with Christ. And that was my first look into what Christianity was about, and the love of God, really. And that church, Fraser and I forgot her name, Jono's mum, were leading the church at that time, and they were just like beautiful people to be leading it, and also the heart after youth, so that made it even more better to relate with as a young person.
He's always been in a relationship with Pat Bat, from what I can remember. We always just go there for clubs nights too, as well. And
so we'd use that as our space for running stuff, games, events.
We used to run the, what's the 3-course dinner?
The fine dining?
Yeah, where all the young people had to dress up. We'd always cook there and set out the tables real nice. Everyone had to dress up. It was something like out of the ordinary that no one's ever done before. Most of the volunteers through clubs and stuff, Pat Bat. Heaps of them came from Pat Bat.
Yeah.
And the other place that we started to use was we had houses or flats in the neighbourhood. So a lot of us lived in the northwest or around Christchurch, and we had flats. And in those flats, we'd often run a lot of our stuff from activities, hangout. And one of the key places where we did a lot of our meeting and greeting and organising was a place on Idris Road, owned by the Jansons. So Chris Jansen, who's the current board chair, most of their family's all been involved. So Greg in clubs, Claire, Susie, and they had a spa pool, and that's where the organisation meetings and that happened. Just around the road was Taylor's Road, was where Judy Bruce and others had a flat. Jeanette and others started having their flats, and the other place too was up in Waiora Trust. So we started developing our own little spaces away from YFC, where we had a little bit more ownership. But Papanui Baptist probably would have been the main place where we'd sort of congregate and run big events from. When we really became sort of grounded in a space that was not someone's house was 30, I think, or 29 Sawyer's Arms Road.
That's where the entry to Northlands car park is on the far side. So there was a main house, like an old villa-ish, 3 rooms, I think.
So out the back there was this old brick sleep out, and Andy Bolsar, he was one of our volunteers. He flatted in that space, and he'd keep an eye on the spot.
It was so ugly. Andy's not ugly though. Andy, you're not ugly.
That's where TKW moved to. So TKW was in the back hall, the old hall of Papanui Baptist, and then they moved into this old villa.
No lock on the toilet, no vans. All we ate was Weet-Bix and coffee. And Jono and Greg were our tutors, teachers, and Judy Bruce. Oh no, Jono even wasn't there actually. It was Greg and Judy was our first teachers. And then Jono come along.
I think the council supported and subsidised the rent. And so TKW was running out of there, and that became our base. And we knew it was becoming a space that our kids owned, because for a while there, we'd wake up, we'd come in the mornings, set up for the TKW, for the school program. We think someone's been here overnight. These dishes are in the sink. Where'd they come from? And we actually then clicked that the older club kids, or some of the kids, Corey Kelly, a few others, they were actually breaking in there at night so they had somewhere to sleep, somewhere safe to go.
We used to break into the TKW when we used to go out to town, and we didn't want to go home, so we just used to smash the window and light all the boxes to keep us warm because there was no blankets, and pull the curtains down. And then Balsa would come next door and say, hey, and he'd look at us and smile and goes, you could have just knocked on the door. But then we'll do it again next week.
And so we'd have school there during the days, and at night times that we would meet. So Monday nights, Tuesday nights, would set up and would have, most days after school would be the kids would come and play. So they'd jump the fence from Papua High School, come across. When there's hoha, ruddy going on, we'd be breaking up fights in a car park out the back. We set up computers so that the community would come in and just use the computer space. This was way back when the internet was like a really new thing. So it became a little bit of a space, particularly for our young people that they owned. We'd spend hours playing cricket in the front yard, and then we set the basketball court up. We built a basketball court out the back. And that basketball hoop is this very same basketball hoop as the one that we have out here now. We managed to get hold of 19 Sawyers Arms Road, which was probably best described as slightly better than a cardboard box. But that was our very first own space.
It was a place that we could call our own, pretty much. It was actually Te Ora Hou. It was our space.
So people will tell you about the rats.
It was really funny, like we would have prayer and that, and the next minute you'll hear somebody, like there's a rat running through the room. And so that happened quite a bit.
It was parues and it smelled, and it was hoary, and there was mice, a lot of them. And we used to have sleepovers in the hoary ass place. And our offices were there. But everyone seemed to love it and kept coming back, so yeah, it was a place that we could have called our own, I suppose.
They'll tell you how cold it was. They'll tell you that it was damp, dark, cold. You never went into the backyard, which faced south, because you might never come back out. There's possibly rumours there's still kids stuck down there now. We don't know. We just hear the voices.
And the backyard was horrendous. It never mowed the lawns, ever. Yeah, TKW wasn't so bad, but the Te Ora Hou site at the back, the lawns were not okay.
Not maintained.
No wonder we had mice.
Yeah.
It certainly was nothing like what we have today, but there's not a lot I can, because it was like, this is our space, I'm going to make it what it is. You hadn't really ventured in and looked at how other people's spaces look.
So I'm not quite sure of exactly how we got out of 19 Sawyers Arms Road to our current site, 77 Windermere Road. But what I do know is that TKW did a few little moves in between, and they ended up downstairs at 77 Windermere Road. Newton Dodge, who was the trust administrator for Te Ora Hou and TKW, particularly for TKW, I think he organised it so we could get it in here. So he had a relationship with the Christian Schools Trust, who owned the site. Allan Vale had been previously using it, a school down the road. And so TKW moved in, Allan Vale moved out, and they took over downstairs.
It was a massive space. It was way bigger than the whare, so that was really good. You had enough room for the students to run around, enough room for everyone to go into 2 different rooms to learn. Yeah, it was really good. We came from such a small space to a massive one.
And then in 2000, we moved upstairs and took over. It was a big, old, 2-storey building, ex-Catholic school. Apparently the boarding area had been downstairs.
It was ugly. I think the main gate was really scary because I thought it looked like a haunted palace.
So Newton ran a business with Cheryl, who's still here, out of the villa out the front.
Then you had the little wee chapel to the side.
We moved upstairs, TKW shifted downstairs, and then other groups came in. So a group called Boutros was working with the Egyptian migrant community. He was in a big old hall out the back.
Puka Puka community is where we found Phil.
They took over a room downstairs. So every Friday morning you'd smell the donuts being cooked for the fundraisers. Saturdays and Sundays there'd always be church events and stuff going on. Upstairs apparently there was the nun who roamed the hallways.
Someone said there was a haunted nurse nun. I think it's been viewed a few times, but I've never seen it, But I believe the guys when they say that, Yeah.
Marcel made these up. I'm telling you now, they're not true. I've stayed in there lots of times. Well, I used to stay in there heaps of times. We used to do hagies and stayovers, and I never got free. The only scary thing was walking down that main corridor. Once you went downstairs by yourself, there was another level. It was just because it was just dark and gungy. But I never felt haunted in that place.
And apparently there was a nun, and George Eho, who was kaumātua, really well respected, told us one day, we're up there for a board meeting, comes up and goes, I met the nun tonight. I said, yeah, what? He goes, yeah, I saw her on the stairs. I said, oh, all right. He says, no, I told her, it's all right, the place has been looked after, you can go home now. And we never saw her again. So the first earthquakes, I was living just around the corner, woke up by the earthquakes, thought, oh man, Te Ora Hou will be in pieces. That building would have fallen down. Jumped in the car and went round. I was amazed to see it was still standing. Couldn't believe it was still standing. In fact, reasonably intact. Like broken stuff had come down everywhere. What that did is it probably highlighted or said, man, we've got to start thinking long term about the future. We put together a proposal probably in about 2004, proposal to the Christian Schools Trust. What would it look like if we could develop a community hub on the space? And so that was kind of the seed, I think, for the vision. But the earthquakes sort of said, hey, we need to think about stuff differently. And of course, the earthquakes in 2011, that just whacked the place, and we couldn't use downstairs and upstairs anymore. So we all moved everyone into the villa. The old hall, Praxis had also been part of it. And that was probably where we started to get serious about what would come next. I think it was 2014. We probably sat down with the Christian Schools Trust and got serious about, can we actually buy and purchase the site? And we'd sit looking at that stage too. Vodafone had actually funded the new building, which is actually directly in front of me right now. Youth workers running in and out of it, which we used as an office space. And we sat in that building and we kind of looked out and thought, oh, what if we had the childcare, the old ECE buildings that had been run by Cornerstone? And that just went one step further. And I think Rebecca and myself, possibly others, kept egging each other. I said, yeah, but maybe we should also maybe we should do this. So it ended up like we actually need the whole site. We could take the whole site. Imagine if we had the whole site. That would be awesome. And I don't know if it was explicit or really intentional at that time, but you'd go. And about going back to when we had the idea for the community hub and what it could look like. But the ideas, I think they're just going in parallel. They just sort of sat there, just egging us along, just nudging us to think bigger and better. And so we go, oh, this would be awesome, imagine. But how are you going to do it? And so we sat down, we had a negotiation with the Christian Schools Trust. And we came to a deal. And I think we were really blessed because we had Simon Britten, who was able to put his hand up and say, yeah, I'd be willing to take on this job of project managing it.
I came on board with a project early in 2018 when we were negotiating purchase of buildings, had a few trips to the university to look through and select what buildings we might like to take, and integrate, I guess, between our own organisation, a lot of external stakeholders, community, and some professionals as we work through a planning process. Initially a bit of a master plan for the site to consider how those buildings could sit on our site, how they would work, how we would use them, what purposes they would fulfil. We brought on board Field Studio, who had some real expertise around a shared vision around how a site like ours could work to support community.
It can't be institutional. It has to feel like us, it has to look like us, it has to taste, smell, sound like us. And what does us look like? Us is $2 scoops on a Monday night, us is old vans, us is slightly crazy, us is a little bit disorganised, us is big hearts, us is we love our rangatahi, our whānau, our community, us is learning how to do this all the time. Us as an organisation that just grew out of volunteers with hearts that got transferred into vision about tūhono rangatahi, about tamariki tū rangatira, about supporting our young people on that journey to being more than actually than others believed they could be.
We reached a point where we were able to commit in stages. So first stage was to commit to purchasing the buildings. and to press a go button with some professionals to go through a consenting process. We needed resource consent first, and then subsequently building consent for the works that we wanted to do. And we worked with Field after the master planning stage to get through the initial building consent stage for the first 2 stages of the project at first. So that was with Lang to get the buildings relocated and delivered onto our site, put on foundations, and then with RPC Construction, who came on board to fit the buildings out for us, to build our decking, to build our canopies, change a whole lot of joinery in these buildings, and other fit out work that really took what were pretty functional buildings and turned them into spaces that felt comfortable for young people, for community, for our own staff, and really shape the whole site to make it work for us and to fit well for Te Ora Hou and fit well for our wider community. And to get through those stages, that took us really through 2018 into 2019 was when we demolished our old villa, started moving things around, started asking our staff to work in smaller and smaller spaces. We shifted an existing building from the front of our site. It was where our car park now is, and a little bit under where the whare now is. Shifted that to the back of the site. We took delivery of 4 buildings in 8 pieces from the university, and that was a huge logistical exercise to get those through to here, up the driveway. And thanks to Lang for all their expertise and their work in that. 3 of those buildings were joined back together, and that's what you see at the back of our site now. One of those buildings, it was delivered in 2 parts and it stayed in 2 parts. And you can see that on our site now as well. If you have a careful look, you can see where that building was originally joined as one. In 2020, we hit a big lockdown and a few speed bumps from that. Once you lock down a construction project and then start it up again, that poses some challenges logistically. You've not only lost time, but a lot of work tends to get a little bit uncoordinated. And also we started running into the odd supply glitch through that process as well. But it was really gratifying to get that stage completed, get into those buildings, not on time, thank you COVID, but to our original budget envelope, and thanks to some hard work around the pricing and the funding of that, we landed with an expanded scope. So on budget, bigger scope, some time delays due to COVID, but pretty satisfying and a pretty good outcome overall. The construction of the whare was a pretty smooth process for us. It was a nice stage of the project because it being an all new build on a defined part of the site, it was less disruptive to us as an organisation. We were able to do our mahi in the spaces that we had and look over the fence and see this new building, amazing new building, come up out of the ground.
Whare is living, you know. It's just not an inanimate object that sits there and you tell the stories in it, you warm it, we bring it, it comes to life. So in there the whare actually tells the story and it speaks to who we are, Te Ora Hou. It speaks to our rangatahi, saying this is who you can be. It speaks to our community, saying actually this is what it means to be. It's okay, it's awesome to be, let's be proud of being who we are, let's be proud of being Māori in the spaces.
The whare is going to be the big impact. Not only people can come and visit here, but they can actually stay overnight or have that relationship with people, you know, during the night, the day, and have programs that way. So it's a different outlook now.
It's also about, I guess, making a statement. Because if we look around our neighbourhood, you see lots of buildings that are built. So we have bungalows, California bungalows, English style villas, we got new townhouses, we got schools, we got places. But where's the spaces you go and look at, go, hey, this building actually reflects who I am. It's designed to reflect who I am in terms of my culture. But it's more than that, it's who I can be and who I'm called to be. So the whare is a lot of things. But what it's not is just a simple building to house or run activities or programs from. The functional part of it is just the small part of it.
Back in the days, they had trouble, with kids going through Northland malls and causing trouble, but there was just more a sense of belonging that these kids were looking for, and so this is it for them. yeah, it's sort of like a venture playground, really. Yeah.
Because Te Ora Hou has never actually been the building, it's always been the people. So wherever Te Ora Hou goes, it's always been the people. Like Te Ora Hou took us around the whole South Island, around the whole North Island. It was never a place, it was always the people, the leaders, the rangatahi. But it is really cool to have a space to call our own, where people can come in, rangatahi, feel comfortable, they're safe. Yeah, they're not judged. Another home, I suppose. And it's a massive one, a nice one, a flash one. I love the whare.
Doesn't stink.
Yeah, doesn't smell, there's no mice.
No mice. Yeah.
There's actually real nice lawn.
Yeah. Some good nice gardens going on, eh? Bark. There's bark that stays in the garden.
Oi, vans that work. Yeah, they're not going to blow up.
No.
Yeah, you're not sitting on the gas tank.
No, not on the gas tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, no bonnet braiding though, but that's alright.
No, but that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. I think for me,
no thinking it's haunted either?
No, it's not haunted anymore. Is it? No, it's not haunted.
Maybe chapel.
Maybe chapel, yeah, I'm meaning. And I think being back here and seeing what's come from the time that I have been involved now, thinking on how proud and just like being a part of it is part of, that moment in time, like from being in the start of things to being into the near completion of a site is really exciting, and it's like really rewarding because it's like, you were there in the very beginning and you can still be here now. So it's the saying goes, it's like once you are part of Te Ora Hou, you never leave Te Ora Hou. So I love that feeling. I always knew that I was going to come back here, I just didn't know how I was going to come back here.
Jono's favourite saying we used to say is it's like the Hotel California, you can check out but you can never leave. It's the same thing, it's just like coming back home. It's a home. For me, it's always been a home.
Because when people come here now, they talk about what they see, what they smell, what they sense, what they feel. They don't just talk about the buildings, or don't just talk about the people. They talk about the experience of being here and what it feels like to them. We went from being people who never owned a house or home before to being homeowners.
And then obviously with this space, now strongly rooted here, it's very cool. I don't sort of go, well, it's great that I started this. I just feel like I was part of something, starting something. I pioneered it and I took it where I could, and it's been taken this way now, and it's amazing. And and nationally I've had some relationship as well, like with Lou and Shaz, and seeing what they've done with the Pulse and now their new venue. So even like with the organisation moving out of Youth for Christ, like I said earlier, I think that was a natural progression, and that was a really important journey, I think, for Te Ora Hou, now, and the name change, and but all organisations have a history, and the history affects the future. So it's awesome.